Hello again, everybody. Welcome to Tiger Sidelines on MC22 alongside Gabe DeArmond and Dave Matter. I'm Bo Bayman. First of all, a big congratulations to Dave Matter, the Sports Writer of the Year. Congrats.
Thank you.
Also, the Tiger Sidelines co-host voter of the year. We just took a
right.
vote.
And you won that too.
Yeah.
There's always next year, guys.
Yeah.
It was a pool of three.
But congrats on that. You guys see the game last night?
Yeah.
Pretty interesting.
It was on my TV.
Up and down is roller coaster, whatever you want to say. They look great against Florida. They look terrible against Mississippi State. That's kind of what you get with this team. Let's start with the good, which was Florida, where he scored 91 points. Nobody saw that coming, but it was like, oh, maybe they've turned the corner, which obviously they haven't. It was just one of those games where everything clicked.
I mean, 91 would have been impressive against Vanderbilt or Texas A&M or any team at the bottom, but Florida's that's a top 10 preseason team. Now, they haven't played to that caliber all year, but it looked like a different team. I mean, the way that they attacked, they ignored the shot clock. They shot great. That would have worked in any game. But it was more about their philosophy and their approach. And then we saw none of that, against Mississippi State, really.
Yeah, against Mississippi State, it was brutal, but 91, and they win 91-75 against the Florida team. Well, first of all, there was nobody there because of the threat of the weather, and Florida team who probably is like, okay, let's just get past this, and they couldn't.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think Saturday had a little something to do with Florida, just kind of going through the motions. But again, it's a simple game. When you make 63% of shots, you're going to look really good. And when you make whatever they made last night, you're going to look really bad. Now, some things do go into it, like good shots or not good shots and how well the defense is playing. But it's just not as complex as we want to make it. And I came out of Saturday night thinking the same thing. Wow. I think the philosophy was different on offense. I'd have to really go back and look. I mean, I don't know, was it or did they just make shots?
Well, they also didn't turn it over. They only had 11 turnovers.
They
had 11 turnovers against Florida. They had 13 in the first half against Mississippi State. So you can't even get into your offense if you're throwing it out of bounds or having offensive fouls constantly. So I think that was the big problem. Not the only problem, but one big problem in Starkville.
I thought when they were playing Florida, I thought, okay, maybe they're ready to play without Tillman now, and they've learned, and this is what they're going to be. But then last night, holy smokes, they scored 45 points.
I mean, they all had a terrible night on the same night, but that was the game that was most reminiscent of was when Kim Anderson's team lost, 88-36 or something at Kentucky. I mean, that game was 16-3, 8 minutes. It was 10-0, 5 minutes in. Yeah. And at no point did Missouri ever do anything that showed you, hey, they might have some interest in making this a game.
Right. And last year they lost at Auburn by more points, but that game Auburn hit a ton of threes.
It was close for a while.
It was, yeah. They won by 34 because they hit a barrage of threes in the second half. That wasn't the case in this one. Mississippi State they're a really tall team, but they're really big on the perimeter too, and it looked like Missouri's guards looked really, really small. Like they couldn't get anything going.
Look, if this Mississippi State team ends up like Auburn and makes a Final Four, I will give you guys my salary from this show. Just this one, not like next week, not permanently, just this show.
I thought Andy Kennedy made a really good point at the beginning of the game. He goes, Mississippi State's 0-3. This is an absolute must-win game for them because they made the tournament last year. They're thinking about making it again. They can't lose this game. And they played like that in the first 5 minutes. And after that, you're like, okay, this is over.
I mean, Missouri, I don't think they went to double figures until like 15 minutes into the game. I mean, I think they were stuck on 9.
They had 9 points in 15 minutes.
So, I mean, you have that, you're just not going to win, and you knew it was over.
By the way, the defense wasn't any good last night either. No, Mississippi State shot 60% for the game. Yeah. So that thing that they've always hung their hat on, that's what's hurt since Tillman's been down. It's not the offense. It's teams now have no fear of going inside.
Yeah, it's interesting. They're now 9-7, 1-3. We said they could start 0-5. They play at Alabama this coming Saturday. So they did get off the schneid with that win. I just don't see where they're going.
I don't either. I mean, I wouldn't think going on the road that they would have any shot. Not that they had some great home court advantage the other night against Florida, but it's hard to win on the road, and this team makes life so much harder for itself when they turn it over, and there's kind of that on-off switch with the intensity and the physicality.
What's happened to Mark Smith?
He's a three-point shooter, and that's all he is. If somebody told me, I think we talked about it last week, where a good three-point shooter, teams don't let them get three-point shots off, right? And Mark Smith is not a good enough athlete generally to go get his own shot. So he's a spot-up shooter that needs to be open. Well, if teams don't leave him open, if his three isn't going down, he's not doing anything for you. He took 1 2-point shot last night, and he just doesn't bring anything else to the table.
Is he almost, this is a weird comparison, but is he almost a Matt Lawrence?
Colin Van Leer, maybe?
I mean,
against Florida,
not
he
as
did
good as
attack a
Matt
bunch,
right
and he got to the free throw line a few times. He had that nice dunk on the baseline. He just doesn't look to do that very often. And when they get in a rut, it's like, okay, we're in catch-up mode. I'm just going to be a three-point shooter.
Yeah, and then last night, Drew Smith hits, I think, 1 shot. Xavier Pinson hits 0. I mean, they got nothing out of that position.
But you can go up and down. Kobe Brown had 14 points, and he was decent. Everybody else was not good.
Yeah, everybody else was terrible. And it was Pinson's dunk against Florida that was really the igniter for the whole night, I thought.
Yeah, absolutely. And that Missouri played better from there on for the rest of that half. It got everybody into it. I think Florida was a little taken back by it. I would be if, the smallest guy on the floor dunks over your 6'10" forward. But they just didn't have any of those kind of impact, momentum-swinging plays in Starkville.
And I think Pinson's the guy, if you're going to play in a get in half court and settle down, he's a waste. That's not him. His thing is get out, be athletic, push the pace a little bit. So he's really the guy that if they're going to do this, I think he can kind of drive them. But I'm not going to believe that a Alonzo Martin team is ever going to play that way consistently because no matter what he says, they don't do it.
And when you have guys who are open like Torrance Watson on the wing and he can't knock down a shot, I mean, you just have no chance.
Yeah, and he, Pickett will hit a three every once in a while, and he's been fine. He's the guy that you don't feel like, okay, he plays hard all the time, but he's limited offensively.
Had 4 turnovers last night.
Yeah, he did, and he seems like he travels at least 3 times every game, and an offensive foul or 2. They don't have that one guy where you're like, okay, this guy's going to do it for you. Kind of like Mississippi State has with Reggie Perry. Like, okay, if he scores 22, gets 10 rebounds, then you're going to win and have a really good shot because he's your best player. This team doesn't have that.
So here we are, the middle of January. As I said, they're 9-7. It's so hard to look at the schedule and say, okay, they're at Alabama, then they have A&M at home. They got to go 1-1 this week. I mean, I kind of feel like, oh yeah, remind me when they play.
Well, and every week, it's kind of like, yeah, they'll probably go 1-1. Well, that's not good enough at this point.
Right.
I mean, what that's going to get you is 16-14, a very, very incremental improvement from what they were last year.
In a league that's not as good.
In a league that's not as good with a team that the coach has told us could compete to win it. So bottom line, it's not good. I think what concerns people more than this year not being good enough is it makes you look at next year and go, why is it going to be better?
Right? Yeah, right.
Like you bring everybody back and theoretically, okay, they should all get better. But they didn't all get better this year.
Right.
And you're not adding anything to that. So I think a lot of people are looking at this and going, where are we going to be at 18 months from now?
Absolutely. And a guy who went into the transfer portal, Mario McKinney, no longer with the team. He was suspended indefinitely and then has decided to leave.
Yeah, I think you can look at this 2 ways. I think at the micro level, like looking at closely, it's not a big deal. He was the 11th or 12th best player. The times he was out there, you're like, this guy's not going to be a difference maker unless he really rapidly improves, or they just can wait
Certainly
for a
not
long
this
time.
year. Yeah.
Or you can wait for a long time for this guy to develop. You step back a little bit and you're like, okay, this is a guy that they kind of made a big deal about getting out of St. Louis, top-rated player in St. Louis, in the state, even though you had guys right outside the border who were better in Illinois. Is this a bad look? Well, yeah, but is it a worse look if you keep him on the team and he's a problem? Well, yeah, that too. So you can't really win on this one.
Well, and we were talking beforehand. The issue to me is not that Mario McKinney transferred. It's not that Christian Guest transferred. It's not that Axel Okongo has played 110 seconds. It's that every year he's taking guys that, he seems to know aren't going to contribute. And, it's cool. 3 months later, they can just leave. It's no big. Well, no, you can't do that every year.
And then the other question that you sort of mentioned, Gabe, is what is next year?
Right.
There's no big guy out there, hey, we got a top 25 guy coming in.
Unless somehow they pull a miracle and land Josh Christopher.
Right.
I don't think anybody really expects that to happen, but he hasn't ruled him out, so you still have to say, yeah, it's possible.
And he seems like a different kind of kid, a little unconventional, some of the things he's doing is recruiting. So I wouldn't rule anything out with him, so you just never know. But at this point, you can't say Missouri's a favorite by any means.
And if he doesn't choose Missouri, then you're back to wondering where are you at next year?
It's going to be JUCO guys, transfers. It's, it's patchwork, and let's kick this thing down the road another 12
Or you
months.
try to find a Kobe Brown or a Trey Jackson who's signed or committed somewhere else right now, which is kind of Gonzo's specialty.
Yeah, no question. Okay, let's talk about the women's team. They lose to number 12 Mississippi State 79-64, and then they dropped a game at Arkansas 90-73. They're 4-13, 1-3 in the league. It seems to me this is going to be a year where we look at it and say, I think they're playing a little better. I think they're playing a little better in stretches only.
Stretches. Third quarters kill them.
Yeah.
They just fall apart, and it's usually turnovers, and defensively they just give up a ton of points. It's tough. I mean, you look at that game the other night, fourth quarter, the freshmen were carrying them, offensively at least. The seniors, I mean, Amber Smith, I think, was sitting on 2 points for a long time, and, Roundtree is not doing much. Jordan Chavis not doing much, so I think the more and more the season goes on, the more they're going to rely on Frank and Blackwell because they are the future.
Absolutely. And the Tigers' schedule is brutal. They host number 4 South Carolina. That's Thursday. Then they play at Ole Miss. I mean, you almost have to get the one at Ole Miss.
I mean, let's be honest. Does it matter?
No,
they're
you're
4-13.
You're right.
I've got no interest in putting any spin on this. This season is over.
You're right.
I mean, I don't know. The friends and family are probably going to continue to go to the games, but that's about it.
And they had a pretty decent crowd when they played LSU. I had imagined they'll have a decent crowd because of the quote-unquote bad blood with South Carolina. But Gabe's right. I mean, this season is all about the freshmen getting playing time and getting ready for next year.
Yeah, I mean, you want them to get something out of this. I mean, you want them to build up some toughness and some experience so that they can look back next year or 2 years from now and say, hey, remember our freshman year? That was brutal, but we got better through it, because that's really the only upside at this point.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, when we come back, we will take your tweets. We're talking about the Tigers, and we got a lot to talk about on the basketball side. You're watching Tiger Sidelines on MC22. Welcome back to Tiger Sidelines, everybody. Gabe DeArmond, Dave Matter, and I'm Bo Bayman. We're at Tiger Sidelines on Twitter. It's time to check the old tweet machine. Thomas has our first one and says the 07-08 Mizzou women's basketball team currently has the program record for the lowest season winning percentage at 32.3. They were 10-21. Do you think this year's team will set a new record for the lowest winning percentage?
Well, they're going to be 4-14 after their next game, which I'm not a math whiz, but that's somewhere around 22%. Yeah, that's a long way to go to get to 32%.
Yeah, the league's, I think, a little deeper and tougher now. Arkansas used to be a team you can count on beating all the time, and they're nationally ranked now, so yeah, there's a chance.
I think wins are going to be tough to come by in that league, and they don't have any more non-conference games, and not that they did well in the non-conference anyway. Right. Scott says, more improbable, Chiefs overcoming a 24-zip deficit to win by 20, or Mizzou men's hoops scoring 91 on Florida.
I mean, one of those things has happened before.
Yeah.
The other one has legitimately never happened ever. So I think you got to go with the one that's never happened, right?
Probably. Right. How many rings for Mahomes? This gentleman says 8, Pete, minimum. Scotty.
You know what? Everybody thought Dan Marino was going to have 1 million rings his second year in the league, too.
That's true. Is it okay to have this much love in my heart for another grown man? I think they're talking about
meant
Dave.
for Dave. I don't know.
It's replying to you, though.
It's fine. I mean, there's anything wrong with that.
Jason says, with so many guards, it seemed like one was destined to transfer. Do you get the impression the Missouri staff is disappointed it was Mario? Lots of rumors floating around about him, but I'm not buying them unless you guys confirm.
The surprise around Mario McKinney, honestly, was that he came back after Christmas break.
Right.
I think we all expected him after the bragging rights game to just be done.
Right. I realized, too, he's the only player we never interviewed him. They never made him available. I never even talked to him when he committed or signed because he declined interview requests.
He Twitter messaged me a couple times.
Yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah.
Strange deal. So how will we remember the era? I don't know.
But, I mean, no, nobody's shocked by this, but here's the interesting part. So he played in that Chicago State game.
Right.
Which is a second semester game, technically, correct?
Hadn't started yet, but the first one ended.
You remember, guys that are eligible for the second semester, like Trayvon Bryant, got to play in the Illinois game because first semester was over.
Right.
So does this mean he has to sit out all of next year? I would think common sense prevails.
There's enough appeals, loopholes that you can get something.
He might not have to sit out at all. He might be able to play Tuesday somewhere.
Yeah, you never know. Matt Brooks, how many early to midseason transfers has Konzo had, and is this starting to become a concern?
I mean, it's a lot, but
I think it's only the third in-season transfer. Blake Harris, who
and
we
they were
should know,
fine with that.
went to NC State and then left there.
Yeah.
And then Christian Guest, who nobody had heard of.
They were fine with that.
When he committed. So,
But again, the problem is, why are we taking these guys that 3 months later you're going, oh yeah, it's cool if they leave. We don't care. Right?
Yeah.
Why are they on scholarship?
No concern. Trammell says, how concerning is it that under Konzo, Missouri seems like they keep losing these talented young players to the transfer portal? Also, how did McKinney not know that Missouri had other guards
I think
before
Dave
he
has
committed?
some thoughts on the second question.
I don't really understand that. He made that comment in a Facebook post, which is public for everyone to read. And he said he didn't know that there were 5 guards on the roster. Well, 3 of them are from the St. Louis area, and I'm pretty sure he knew them. And he did take a recruiting visit to Missouri, and I'm pretty sure he met all of them, unless they all introduced themselves as seniors.
And legitimately, the first thing you do when you're being recruited at any sport is you look at the depth chart.
Right.
And you say, can I play here?
Where do I fit in?
Am I going to be the 6th guy at a place where they only played 2 guys? Maybe that's not where I want to go.
I think it was probably more a case of Mario, like every freshman who signs with a team, just expects I'll be the starter and be the best player, and then I'll be in the NBA in a couple of years because I'm that good, instead of half a year in and be like, oh, I didn't know these other guys were here.
Yeah.
They're also good? Yeah.
They play my position. Tyron Matthew Hive says, is Missouri a football school by default?
Wrestling?
Right now they're a volleyball.
Volleyball,
Look,
true.
But Missouri always has been a place where it just depends on what's good. Like most schools you look at and you say, oh no, that's automatically a football or a basketball school, regardless of how the teams are doing.
Right.
Missouri, you can make an argument for either one. I mean, if you grew up when we grew up, it's a basketball school.
Right.
Yep.
If you grew up in the 2000s, it's a football school.
Yep.
You know, it just kind of depends, which again goes back to they sometimes are a basketball school. They should be better at basketball in a league full of football schools.
Well, speaking of football and Twitter, I saw Coach Drink tell you to be more positive.
He did, yeah. Well, I couldn't be positive last night.
Yeah,
so
Dave was just foreshadowing for what was coming.
good for him. He's paying attention.
He is paying attention. We'll talk a little bit about him and his last hire when we come back. Time for a break. You're watching Tiger Sidelines on MC22. Welcome back, everybody. This is Tiger Sidelines on MC22, or however you consume it. It might be on YouTube. It might be on Brian Austin's Twitter feed. Who knows? That's Dave Matter. That's Gabe DeArmond. I'm Bo Bayman. The football coaching staff, we talked about it last week, saying, hey, they need an offensive line coach. And Coach Drinkwitz, practically right after we were done, filled that spot.
Yeah, I had to look at the rundown to remember who it was because it happened last week. But Marcus Johnson from Joe Moorhead's staff at Mississippi State obviously was then kind of out of a job. I don't know. I've heard good things, but, you know, you always hear good things.
He's worked for offensive head coaches at Duke. He worked under David Cutcliffe, who, you know, is well respected, and then Moorhead. And they had an okay line last 2 years. I don't know if that is the measure of if he's a good coach or not, what it was like for his very short stint at Mississippi State. But we'll see. Hey, he talks to the media, so I'm happy with that.
Not
Unlike
yet.
the last guy. Well, not yet.
Not yet.
But he has in the past.
We assume.
The good thing, or the thing that I see about the staff, is they're all recruiters.
Yeah, I mean,
Of course,
I
everybody
guess.
is.
Right,
That's a big
everybody.
part of the job.
Everybody gets players, you know, but what you're going to find out is, hey, can he recruit the same guys at Missouri that he could at Mississippi State or that he could at Washington or wherever these guys have been?
Yep.
You know, we'll see.
Absolutely. All right, by the way, the football spring game set for April 11th. I know that one thing that you guys will want to know and everybody will want to know is what kind of access you get in the spring. Now, I know that spring football is a little boring, but the access to a new regime is kind of interesting.
With a new coach, just to see how things work, you know, how much will we get to see, who we get to talk to, all of that is still unknown at this point.
Do you expect to get a schedule
I
before
mean,
it starts?
It usually starts on a Thursday. I would say that the Tuesday before we'll have
Yeah.
a good idea.
Yeah, absolutely. How about the national championship game? LSU wins it 42-25 over Clemson, and I mean, Joe Burrow, they kept on talking about it on the broadcast, and they're right. He's going to be forever a Louisiana legend.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, I think it's an easy argument to make. He had the best individual season, maybe in college football history. I mean, Cam Newton's in the discussion, Barry Sanders, Randy Moss, but Joe Burrow's up there, 60 touchdowns.
Undefeated, Heisman Trophy winner, national championship. I mean, they show it on the graphic. That's only been done a handful of times, and his season supersedes, I think, what like Jameis Winston did.
Sure.
And maybe Cam Newton, but he's right up there for sure.
I'm really interested to see, though, like Cincinnati's going to take him number one, right? I think LSU's probably got better receivers than Cincinnati does outside of A.J. Green. And Joe Burrow, everybody forget, what's so amazing about this, he was just kind of a guy last year. He wasn't all that good. He got Joe Brady a $4 million a year coordinator job. So hopefully if Joe Burrow washes out, Joe Brady will send him some of his paychecks because that's why he got it.
Well, and a lot of people have always said with LSU, if they ever get a quarterback, they're going to be dangerous. They've always had defense. They've always had skill players.
They've always had receivers.
Yeah, skill players are there, but they've had Jamarcus Russell and guys like that, and finally somebody stepped in and did it.
It's really going to be interesting to see what happens next at LSU.
Yes.
I mean, they lose their, this quarterback we're talking about is maybe the best ever, and they're losing the brainchild of the offense. You still have Coach O, obviously. I think their defense will be good. They'll keep getting athletes at receiver and running back. But can they come close to being that good offensively again?
Well, and here's what LSU proved to me this year. We talk so much about, hey, this coach is better than that coach. Well, Ed Orgeron was a disaster at Ole Miss.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, all of a sudden he's at LSU with freak show receivers, a really good running back, the first pick in the draft at quarterback. Oh, Ed O's a great coach.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Yes, he's probably a better coach than he used to be. And, he's a guy people want to play for, and he deserves a lot of credit. But I've always said, if you put Gary Pinkel at Alabama instead of Nick Saban, I bet Gary wins a national title.
Oh,
yeah.
And if you put Nick Saban at Missouri instead of Gary Pinkel, Nick Saban doesn't win a national title.
And when Coach O got to LSU, they were like, is this the right guy?
Oh, most people thought it was terrible.
Yeah, but he couldn't do anything at Ole Miss. Why is he going to? So.
And now everybody's disgusted he only makes $4 million.
Yeah, no question.
Not for long, probably.
Number 23, wrestling split 2 meets, beating Ohio and then losing at Northern Iowa. Tigers are 6-5. They are 3-0 in the MAC. They have, I believe, a 17-match MAC winning streak. But this is a squad that's really struggling. I mean, they have no consistency up and down. It used to be, and we've talked about this, you'd have a Jaden Cox, you'd have a Jaden Ironman, Daniel Lewis, who could come in and you say, okay, this guy's winning. They don't really have that this year.
Yeah, it's a down year. Their down years aren't what Robin Pinson is experiencing by any means. But yeah, it is. I went to a match the other night and just took the kids and there's something missing here. There's that run of dominance is not there. Very good wrestlers, but not like it has been. So not that they'll be down long by any means, but it is a little bit different.
So I've talked at the Tiger Club in Kansas City yesterday, and somebody asked me, how come Jim Sturck how come all he ever talks about is this south end zone and this and that? And I said, what else are you going to talk about right now?
Right.
He talks about wanting to be a top 25 athletic department. This is as far as Missouri's ever been from that.
Yeah.
Since especially right now, you fired your football coach, your men's basketball team is middling at best, your women's basketball team's awful, your best program in wrestling is taking a transition year right now. Baseball and softball are in the toughest league in the conference and can't play in the postseason.
It might be good this year, but they're not playing anywhere.
I mean, get to top 12 in the SEC and then worry about top 25 overall.
It's almost like this year and this school year can't get over fast enough, and they can't get to the fall fast enough.
And I wouldn't say this is okay. Well, they're doomed to repeat this kind of stuff all the time because you got new blood at football program, and who knows about basketball. I think we all think that this is kind of an outlier for women's basketball, and then eventually baseball and softball will be able to get to the postseason. But man, this year itself, you want a mulligan.
Well, and it's a good thing that there's a distraction in the state called the Kansas City Chiefs right now. Yeah. And how great is it going to be when it's Chiefs in the Super Bowl, Gabe?
Somebody asked me if the Chiefs get there, who do you want them to play? I said they could play the NFC Pro Bowl team. I don't care. Just get there, and I'm good with it. I mean, it'd be kind of cool if it was the Packers Super Bowl one, but I wouldn't hate facing Jimmy Garoppolo instead of Aaron Rodgers either.
I think San Francisco is going to beat the Packers. And I'm a Packers fan, but going to San Fran, that's a tall task. But I agree with you.
They got a really good defense.
Chiefs and Packers would be cool.
I actually kind of want Chiefs-Niners and D Ford lines up off sides on the final snap of the game.
It could happen.
It'd be like full circle.
It could certainly happen. All right, we'll see what happens. Coming up next week, we'll talk about everything going on with the Tigers, and we want to thank everybody behind the scene. We want to thank Brian and Matt and Bill. That's Dave Matter, the award winner. That's Gabe DeArmond. I'm merely Bo Bama. We'll see you next week on Tiger Sidelines right here on MC22.